In Hollywood, one good film can make a career.
Well, aren't you going to thank me for all the trouble I've taken?
One disaster can end it. These weren't amateurs. They were visionaries, once praised for their boldness or precision. But one film, just one, was enough to erase all that.
I'm absolutely alone and penniless.
This is the story of 7 legendary directors who were never the same after one movie. Myra Breckinridge, 1970. Myra Breckinridge is a gay film critic who undergoes gender reassignment to become Myra, and what unfolds is less a narrative than a surreal tug-of-war between identities, one representing control, the other surrender. Raquel Welch and Rex Reed play the two halves of the same character, moving through scenes that feel more like hallucinations than plot. The film, adapted from Gore Vidal's provocative novel, aimed to deconstruct gender, sexuality, and Hollywood mythmaking, but in trying to be everything at once, it spiraled into incoherence.
All you men have a lot to learn, and I have taken it upon myself to teach you.
The production became a slow-motion wreck. The cast didn't trust the material. The tone veered from satire to camp without warning, and no one, not even the crew, seemed sure what kind of film they were making.
It's controversial. I went to a party afterwards where there were all the major critics. Janice was there. And I asked people, I asked the critics, I said, well, tell me, I'm really curious, what do you think? And they said, well, I hated it. I really think it's disgusting. And somebody else said, well, I think it's really novel and certainly worth comment. So it's going to be treated importantly. It's not going to be dismissed, which is great for me because it's the first real, complete movie I've ever been in.
The director, given full control by the studio, micromanaged every frame and rewrote scenes obsessively until the structure collapsed under the weight of indecision. Critics didn't just pan it, they ridiculed it. And for the man behind the camera, it was a career that never quite stood up again. And yet, buried inside its mess are moments that feel ahead of their time, even if no one knew what to do with them. Heaven's Gate, 1980. Once celebrated for a major Academy Award win, this film emerged with ambitions to reshape the Western genre entirely.
You once said you liked me because I didn't.
Then what?
It chronicles a brutal clash during the Johnson County War, unfolding over landscapes painted in uncompromising realism. Funding spiraled from a modest budget into one of the most expensive films ever made up to that point, nearly $44 million, and yet it returned barely $3.5 million. Behind the scenes, the director earned the nickname the Ayatollah for locking himself in editing rooms and ordering endless retakes until every prop and every shot matched his vision. The cost overruns, rumors of mistreated animals, and delayed schedules drained the patience of studio executives. Upon release, critics condemned it as bloated and incomprehensible. The premiere was pulled, and the financial fallout nearly bankrupted United Artists. In the aftermath, the era of director-driven epics collapsed under the reality of studio risk, and the director never again commanded that kind of blind trust, though later re-edits have sparked new appreciation among some cinephiles. Showgirls, 1995.
You don't want to piss me off, darling, now that we're friends.
Set in the neon-lit world of Las Vegas, the film follows an ambitiously seductive dancer climbing her way to the spotlight through sex, power plays, and backstabbing. It arrived as an NC-17 rated spectacle that mixed explicit content and eroticism, but critics and audiences recoiled at what felt like a hollow pastiche. Elizabeth Berkley, in her first starring role, became a lightning rod, praised in late-night kitsch culture but blacklisted in mainstream Hollywood.
I thought it was smart. You were doing like a TV show,
right?
All right? And nobody really thought of you for movies or knew of you and stuff.
They didn't think of you as an adult even.
By being in Showgirls, whether it was a good movie or a bad movie, everybody was talking about you.
That's true. And for all the criticism at the time, like here we are a year later, and they still talk about
Yeah,
it.
and you probably thought...
They hated it so much.
And what did they say? Showgirls and Elizabeth Berkley.
Right.
You have
Now-
total name recognition.
And I thought at the time, I said, man, it was a Paul Verhoeven movie, who's
Right.
like a real well-known
He did
director.
Basic Instinct.
And RoboCop, right? Didn't he do RoboCop?
RoboCop, Total Recall. I mean, so to not have
Lots of
taken
good
that type of
movies.
opportunity...
You got to be nuts.
Yeah.
The director later admitted regret over attempting a graphic rape scene he based on a real account, a decision that alienated more viewers than it shocked. Domestic audiences stayed away, and the film lost over half of its $45 million budget. Yet, as the years passed, it found a second life as a cult classic screened at midnight theaters, drag shows, and revival cinemas, celebrated for its excess, its ambition, and its unapologetic tone. What began as a career misstep ended up as an abrasive statement about spectacle, and in an odd twist, the film's legacy cast shadow back on the director's reputation for pushing boundaries. The Bonfire of the Vanities, 1990.
Loosely translated means you don't have any evidence.
Set in the moral and social soup of 1980s New York, the film adapts Tom Wolfe's sharp satire about greed, privilege, and scandal. The studio cast popular stars Tom Hanks as the protagonist, Bruce Willis as the moral fixer, and Melanie Griffith as his wife, yet none embodied the ambition or cynicism of their characters. The production suffered rewrites, studio interference, and a lost tonal compass, diluting the novel's biting humor into something vague and confused. Critics called it arrogant and misguided. Audiences didn't show up. It grossed barely $15 million against a budget north of $45 million. The film became a cautionary tale, captured in Julie Salamon's book The Devil's Candy, chronicling every misstep and studio overreach. For the director, each failed gamble chipped away at trust. No one quite believed he could translate big themes into mainstream hits again. The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996. The story starts with a stranded shipwreck survivor who stumbles upon a remote island run by a doctor performing grotesque crossbreeding experiments.
I couldn't live anywhere else but here.
A cast included heavyweight actors in open conflict. Marlon Brando reportedly refused to learn his lines and insisted on bizarre costumes, while Val Kilmer brought his own tension. The shoot was plagued by weather setbacks, crew walkouts, and an abrupt change in directors that left the film fragmented. Despite ambitious practical creature effects, the film played like two different movies stitched together. It flopped with critics and audiences, and became fodder for documentaries like Lost Soul, recounting just how badly things went off the rails. For the final director, this was a public collapse, an ending to a once respected career that would never recover its previous stability. Ishtar, 1987. A pair of inept lounge singers, drawn into international intrigue in the Middle East, begin an odd comedic adventure that quickly derails into buffoonery.
We're gonna miss our show!
Oh, no!
Oh, yes!
Oh,
yes! Oh, yes, well...
Production faced endless script rewrites, hostility between stars, and location mishaps that ballooned its budget to over $50 million. After earning just $14 million, it became shorthand for box office disaster. Yet some filmmakers, Quentin Tarantino among them, have since defended it as an overlooked satire, unpacking American incompetence and geopolitical folly. The vibe was meant to be sharp and absurd, but the execution collapsed under its own chaos. For its director, the failure was swift and unforgiving, sidelining her for decades despite a keen comedic sensibility. Cutthroat Island, 1995. A swashbuckling pirate adventure with high seas, buried treasure, and a fierce female pirate at its center. Initially, it seemed poised to revive a neglected genre, but production went off the rails. Storms wrecked sets, script and cast changes disrupted planning, and costs soared past $90 million. When it opened, it earned only $10 million, becoming one of the most infamous flops in cinema history. The studio behind it went bankrupt. The marriage of the director and lead actress ended. In short order, this was the story of everything collapsing behind a camera. In recent years, fans have reclaimed it as campy fun, proof that sometimes failure itself becomes the story. But for the man who set sail hoping for glory, it marked the point where the tide turned, and stayed turned. Some names clawed their way back. Others faded into industry footnotes. But for all seven, one film didn't just shape their legacy. It reshaped their lives, their trust, and their access to the movies that followed. What do we remember more, the career or the collapse? That moment when ambition outpaced control is when legends truly reveal their fragility.